Hi, welcome to another episode of Being a Man. So, I would like to start off this episode with mentioning one, I am not a counselor, I'm not a therapist. These are just topics that come up that I just feel as though maybe someone needs to hear. So, right now, as you may see, I'm in a hotel room. So, currently, I am on a educator's trip down in Orlando, Florida, and this conference has been really good. Like so much so as every single day as an educator, I notice certain things or I see some things, whether in the school or in the educational system. But it's a lot of things that I also realize that like as an educator, the old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. But in order for that to happen, I think about it like this. We're teaching kids, we're teaching children. But does that really have an effect? Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't. I mean, it's a positive to me what I've seen in the past, but also I come to the realization that also adults are just big kids who have some things that they never really fully dealt with, or no one was there to help support them fully. Like, granted, as an educator, maybe someone in education did help them, make it through, but even though I don't believe in so much as only teaching like curriculum such as like, your core subjects. Like people need to be taught life skills and how to deal with them. So from this morning's session, it was a really great session. And then one of the things that popped up in my head and it was a word, it was settling. Not to settle. And that's something I've always taught my students, but it also where I teach them how is that at home or their home situation, how do those two things collide or come together and help each other. So when I talk about settling, it's like to never settle. So as an educator, I'm just using education because this is how it came up, but I want to relate it to life skills as well. So in education, we teach students, hey, critical thinking. If you have this dilemma, how do you work through it? How do you get through it? Now, I also believe, it doesn't have to be a dilemma in order for you to settle for something or in order for you to press through it. And typically a lot of times, the speaker this morning mentioned that as an educator, we could enable a child or even enable a family, such as a teacher every single year, one thing we talk about is forming relationships, being able to understand and relate to your students, and that will help in the classroom far as whether it's disciplinary issues or learning disabilities or just a vast majority of a whole lot of things. But the example was, we know a family doesn't have it all. Everyone's not blessed with the same thing. Everyone's going through something. So teachers typically go above and beyond and start to think, all right, let me have extra supplies in the classroom. Because even though we send out a supply list every single year, throughout the year, okay, we've used so many pencils. We use so much paper. Life happens. Not every family is fortunate to be able to provide these necessities. And as an educator, educators are thinking, hey, I want to do whatever it takes for as to help my students. That educator is not settling for any excuses. They're going to make a way. But have you thought about, are you truly just helping that person? Or are you enabling that student or that family? Because guess what? That child goes home and say, okay, parents may ask, all right, did you do your work today? Or why I get a note from the teacher saying that you don't have this? I know for a fact that we do. Or why you never tell me that you didn't have this? Well, that student probably saw, okay, one day, I know if I don't have it, my teacher is going to have it. So I don't have to bother my parents. I don't have to tell my guardian, hey, I need more pencils or I need more paper for my classes. They know for a fact they're going to be in a classroom and their teacher is going to have it. Well, how does that relate to the real world? Well, if something doesn't go their way or they don't have anything, okay, who's not to say that they know for a fact of some type of program that would give something to them or equivalent to someone in their family who they know for a fact who's trustworthy, who does not want to see them do bad. It's just going to be given to them. And that learned behavior and enabling that person would now go to their children or relative or someone who they're familiar with, or even that child just telling that parent, oh, mom, dad, you don't have to worry about it. Like, my teacher is going to give it to them. So now they're thinking, okay, that teacher has it all together, so I don't have to worry about purchasing anything else. Not knowing that, hey, that teacher probably paid for all of these things out of their funds. So it's to actually think deeper about how we enable one another when we know for a fact that we're going to have help somewhere. But what happens when there's no one around who can help us? What happens when in a given situation that the very next kid or young adult or even older adult comes to you and you've been helping? It's okay. I'm not saying helping anyone is wrong, but I am a firm believer of explanation or explaining, like with scenarios, like not settling. Like, okay, I'm not going to plenty of times think about being a role model. All right, me growing up small country town, a lot of times I could look at some people like, hey, okay, this person works this job. All right, this certain job, they're doing well, they have this, they have that. Like, cool, I can have, or I want all of these things, and all I have to do is just work this certain job. Well, times are changing, have always been changing. So who's not to say that years from now, by the time a person or a student is capable of working a particular job, that the salary is the same or is enough to be able to afford these certain things. All right, things change, whether it's for the positive or for the negative. How would you be able to basically fight against that? So say for instance, all right, you've known this all your life, you go into this profession, things get hard, or hours are longer in order for you to sustain that same level of living or that living style. Like, what would you do? Would you just settle for what you have? Okay, I'm in this profession, I'm just going to work more hours. Well, guess what? You working more hours if you're a family-oriented person like I am, that takes you away from your family. That takes you away from actually your mental and emotional health, taking you away from doing things for yourself. And to me, that is settling. Can you settle with that lifestyle, or would you press through and fight? Okay, cool. I need to set aside, like, let me make a sacrifice here or there. Like, it's a temporary fix for us right now. This time's gonna be temporary. I'm gonna fight through. I'm gonna go back and get a certain type of certification. Doesn't necessarily have to be school. Not everything now with a certain certification. A lot of times you can get a different job and your jobs can pay for a certification. So thinking, all right, I don't have experience in this profession, this career field, but they offer this certification, which can actually give me the experience or the opportunity of learning something new that I need for another job or another position that I want to be in. Well, if God blesses you with the opportunity, granted, trust your ability of being able to learn. Trust your ability of being the very best that you're going to be in order to learn this position. A lot of times we live up out of fear, and fear is also what makes us settle for a lot of things. And I even look back over my past. I'll give you all a firm example. I was a computer engineering major in college. All right, granted, that did get hard, but I didn't settle and just stop trying to become a computer engineer. I pressed on, I sought out help tutoring. Now, what brought me to education was I started thinking, I see where this career would take me. And my firm beliefs on certain things and interviewing with a whole lot of people. Some of the things that they were saying, I did basically an overall average of their responses, and it wasn't what I wanted. Now I look back over my experiences with certain educators, teachers, coaches, and what I was already doing that I was already passionate about. I thought to myself, okay, I'm gonna choose this path because it's what's best for me. So some probably say, okay, you gave up on computer engineering, you settled for something that was less than. Who is to say that that is less than? Because in order to be a computer engineer, someone has to teach you. Someone has to be your motivator. Guess what? Education. But what I originally started doing education for, over time, escalated to something greater for me. Like if I was to show you all my resume, you'd think like, okay, wow, he doesn't stay in a position too long or at a certain job too long. But if you break it down and look at the position, every time I have moved, it has always been a promotion. But before I take a promotion or consider a promotion, yes, it could be something new. But guess what? It may provide me with more time, a higher salary, more time with my family. Okay, I'm a family-oriented person. And when I say family, that goes for everyone. Whether it is my wife, my kid, my mom, my sister, my brothers, like nieces, nephews, like that's what I mean by family. So it wasn't ever me selling. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, about high school, I was fine in my mind with getting a bachelor's degree. Well, because of me knowing my goals and not selling, not just stopping there, I just continue to, whether it's a degree or certification. I like to think of making myself marketable as a person. And settling, I want you all to think about it as in not only a career field, think about it as in your life. Many people are in relationships. I'm not a relationship coach or anything. I understand every situation is different, every person is different. But think about some of the things that you have faced within a relationship. Have you ever once settled? Okay, cool. I want to date this person, or I want to talk to this person, but I feel as though maybe that person's out of my league. But let me turn here. Oh, now that person is someone I can deal with, okay? I'm not intimidated by that person. I mean, their accolades isn't too high, isn't low. It's like, I could work with it, okay? That is settling. You let a person or the accolades intimidate you. So you felt as though like you can settle for something else. Like, no, I'm a competitor, always has been. I've been the type of person to operate out of fear, such as not to back away from it, but to attack it head on. And I understand everyone does not have that mentality, because fear is either going to have an effect of, as I just mentioned, if you're going to go towards it or you're going to run from it. But also think about it as everyone must learn something, whether it's mentally, emotionally, academically, spiritually. You have to be open to new things. New things is not always a bad thing. Change is not always a bad thing. It's finding out what works for you and your own purpose. So whether it's within a relationship, okay, our relationship started like this and it was always so great here. So I don't have to change anything. We just keep doing the same thing. But not even realizing the reason why things were so great during this time was because you both were changing or trying something new. And that's what made everything great. Guess what? When you don't change, you just stay on the same planes and doing the same thing every other day, or without even knowing, you probably have changed, but changed more so towards the worst, to where you don't do things the same like you used to, and it's like an opposite reaction to where things go downhill from there. So it's always thinking, never settle for where you are. I always want to improve. I always want to be your very best. I'm gonna talk about this in another episode, but typically we, as people, we may think or say, Um, I'm not going to change for someone else unless it's just for me, or let me be selfish. And others may say, well, selfish is a bad thing. It's a catch-22. I would say this, it is what works for you. All that I'm coming to you and asking you about is, or want to talk to you about is settling. Do not settle for anything other than what makes you happy. Yes, some people probably say, okay, you doing for others, like you're not considering yourself. But who is to say that you're not considering yourself? That is a personal goal of yours, is to see the people who you love happy. Now, granted, sometimes it may seem as though they don't want the same or don't give you that back, but do not let that ever discourage you, because you truly realize your greatness. A lot of people do not like to have their kindness taken as their weakness, but that's what life is. No one is to say that we supposed to know everything. You're supposed to do everything exactly as you're told, or exactly this. It's a process. And I just thought that after what I've been going through, or realized this morning with that speaker, was education is fun. Life is amazing. Someone's always going through worse than what you're going through, but nobody is perfect. So I'm gonna leave you all with that. Never settle. Do your very best. Be happy and be blessed. All right.